Hello. Hi, my name is Randy Tillery. I am Director of Workforce Development and Post-Secondary Education at WestEd, which only means I get to go to a lot more meetings than Kathy does and do a lot more paperwork than Kathy does. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through very quickly with our panelists, have them each introduce themselves in 30 seconds, and then we have a series of questions that they will be responding to. I have 5 questions, and hopefully we get through at least 2 of them today. So we'll start directly to my right with Adam.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Adam Peck. I'm Executive Director of the Workforce Investment Board in Tulare County. I've been with the organization, been Executive Director for the last 15 years or so. Outside that, spent a little time in, it sounds like a sentence, I spent a little time in the community college system before that. And I'm happy to join you this morning.
And Emma?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting me. I'm your neighbor to the south in San Bernardino County. My name is Emma Diaz, and I'm currently the director for the Inland Adult Education Consortium, which is one of the 71 adult ed consortia across the state, and I've been doing this for 8 years, and so just very passionate about adult education. So thank you for inviting us.
Good morning. I'm Jody Leffler. I am the supervising administrator of Bakersfield Adult School. We are part of Kern High School District. I'm local. I'm a Central Valley girl. Delano, shout out. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
Good morning. I'm Brent Choate, the director for the Division of Rehabilitative Programs for the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation.
Great. So I want to say a couple things just to frame the discussion here this morning. First of all, that we talk a lot about being in an economic recovery. And if you think about equity for a moment, that recovery has not really been the same for everybody. So we know that households that make less than $35,000 a year in terms of earned income have not recovered all of their income since 2019. The same is true about 30%, 35% for adults without a high school diploma, and that we know that Blacks and Latinos in particular have not returned to their pre-pandemic levels of earnings. Women have been much slower to return to the workforce for a variety of reasons, and that in particular, and this sort of surprised me when I was doing some background for this panel, Black and Latino men, many of them have left the labor force. Partly because the industries have changed so dramatically, they've lost their foothold in the labor market, and many of them have just left the labor force entirely. This is difficult enough to grasp. However, the other issue is that people have also left education and training. So between 250 and 300,000 students have left the community college system. Participation in adult education nationally has dropped 46%. Nearly half of students participating in adult education are no longer participating. And participation in WIOA Title I programs, which is one of the major sources of services for the workforce development boards that Adam is here to represent, participation there has dropped by 58%, which does not capture everyone who sort of comes in the door of an American Job Center in California, but it's still a significant statistic related to the number of adults coming in and participating who are low income or dislocated workers in the workforce system. The goal of our panel here today is really just to present 4 perspectives really on this challenge from people who are serving adult learners in different capacities. And like I said, hopefully we will get through some number of the questions here today. I would encourage you strongly to come up and to meet the panelists later on today because they have a lot to share related to the work they do in our communities, serving many of our most at-need communities and at-risk adults and communities. So what I'm going to do is I have 5 questions, and so what I'm going to start with is sort of how are you currently serving underemployed adults and adult learners in your community? And just to kind of give us a sense of the programs that you operate and sort of the flavor of the services that you provide. And Adam, we'll start with you and just sort of proceed across.
Great. So as a local workforce development board for Tulare County, we provide WIOA services and other related services, so help folks get back to work, get the education they need to succeed in the labor force and such. Randy's exactly right. Across the board, about 50% reduction in flow of folks coming in for help. That's for some complicated reasons, right? Some of it's because of great opportunity. Folks don't need education and workforce development intermediaries when work is so immediately available, whether that's the kind of work we wish they would aspire to or not. So it's been a different environment. But those folks who are coming through the doors, there's a reason why they're coming through the doors, because they are this hot labor market, which is hot in many ways in Tulare County, which has structurally high unemployment. We're at about the lowest level of unemployment ever, not just back to our pre-pandemic numbers. So the folks coming in the door are a higher percentage of individuals with disability, higher percentage of justice involved, and you're right, we are seeing this is one of the first major recessions we've had that have hit women the hardest, and so we have higher percentage of Latinas coming in to our system than we've seen if I go back 2 years and look at that data. So different folks coming in, different proportion of folks, different needs. If folks are coming in the doors now, there's much more of a chance that they need some significant investments in their own training or in the ability of kind of navigating the world of work. So it's a unique time to be serving those people in our community.
So yeah, again, AB 104 is the restructuring of adult education in our delivery system, and we're a hybrid. So that's how I see us, community college, adult education, K-12, and the county office of it all working together to be able to uplift our community. So what we do is again, delivering these services that our population needs the most. We looked at data in the Inland Empire. Again, there are 9 consortia across the Inland Empire, 4 in Riverside and 5 in San Bernardino County. So we are a big provider of the services that they need the most, which are those basic skills, getting a high school diploma, ESL, as basic as those sound for them, that offers mobility. So as education providers right now, we're trying to make sure that we can stabilize and grow our programs. And I will say, I had some really great data over the weekend where our Q3 numbers right now are already outpaced our Q4 last year. So that means our students are coming back. We're doing some things that are right, and in future questions that Randy had already kind of front-loaded us with, I'll talk about some of the programs and what we're doing, because I think that attributes to some of that success in the rise in enrollment.
So at Bakersfield Adult School, we serve foundational level education, which means we have the high school diploma, GED, bilingual GED, citizenship. We have career technical education. We have vocational nursing program. We have stackable credentials. So we try to meet the needs of the learner where they come to us. If they come to us needing the high school diploma and they're just not quite there, we have basic education to help them get up to reading at about the 8th, 9th grade level so that they can transition then either into a high school diploma or into the GED. We also offer flexible class times, like many of you who are educational providers. We've had to kind of flip, and do a hybrid model, in-person model, online learning. We just need to meet the needs of the students when they come to us where they're at. And that, if that means, evenings, then that's, of course, and that's actually where most of our students now are coming, is at night. We are almost back to where we were pre-pandemic. The daytime, we're still a little low, but they are coming back. We also have an on-site state-funded children's preschool, and we're one of the few preschools that runs in the evening so that our adult students can have, the childcare that they need so that they can get the English language skills or the high school diploma, whatever it is that they're coming to us for. We have the childcare to help them. So I can talk on, so I'll just let Brent go now.
The question was, what are we doing to serve the underemployed? In California adult prison system, we have about 95,000 men and women that are incarcerated in California in the adult system. And any given day, about 50,000 of those people are in school. And they're actively trying to improve their skill set, so when they are released to our communities, they don't recidivate, and they actually can obtain jobs. So the best thing that we do inside the system is to better prepare them so when they come out to your community, and especially as they integrate into the community college system, that they are better prepared. And for us, and what I've learned, is that it's not necessarily teaching job skills or even earning a certification, it's a mindset for these people. Because as we help them go from basically many not even being able to read when they come to us, all the way through earning diplomas and AA degrees, in some cases bachelor's degrees, we're changing their mindset, or what I like to call their academic self-esteem. Many people have never achieved anything in their life. They've never earned any type of academic certification. And so when they come in and they are able to just get a certificate, or maybe they achieve a GED, that's a big deal. And so now their mindset has changed. And now they're ready and better prepared to come to you. So I don't think that we're employing people in the prison unless you consider a job for 28 cents an hour mopping up floors, but we do help with that mindset piece.
Brent, could you just expand a little bit more? Because I know that it's not just job training and it's not just pathway. I mean, you do a whole variety of things related to sort of both education in the prison and education after prison. So maybe you could talk a little bit more just about your partnerships with community colleges, participation in adult education in California, because you are an adult education provider in the prisons as well.
We actually have 34 prisons, and there are 34 separate WASC-accredited adult schools inside the prison system, and they each work independently, but we're kind of like in Sacramento, the chancellor's office, where we oversee the budget and the curriculum, but they each run their own independent schools. But I think it's important to realize that what we do, the bread and butter is really literacy. We teach people how to read and numeracy skills. And the best thing that's ever happened, and I didn't get paid to say this, but the best thing that's ever happened to the California prison system was our partnership with the community college system. Most recently, as of 2014, the community colleges, and we have agreements with over 20 different community colleges that come into the prison system and teach face-to-face classes. And what that did for our literacy is it set the standard higher, way up here. So people coming into prison that can't read, they're like, I want to be that dude. I want to be the person that's going to college. And so the mentors now are the academics instead of those that are teaching how to make shanks and get into trouble. And it's really changed our system. And that's really the community college system has helped do that. And now, of course, we're moving into bachelor's degrees. And so we have this great partnership with the CSU system and the community colleges working in tandem, where we don't allow a state university to come into our system unless they have a solid partnership with the community college that's coming in that prison. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Let's actually stay in partnership for a moment, because one of the things that I think is really unique about all four of you today is that adult education and workforce boards really are founded on partnership and relationships. And I'll just open this up generally to kind of talk about, first of all, for Jody, for you and Emma, like what are the adult ed consortia? How do they work? And then Adam, I think this question around mandated partners and the structure of workforce boards really kind of go a little bit deeper around this issue around partnership and really how systems really bring together assets and capacity to better serve adult learners in their communities.
Do you want to go first? Okay. So within the consortium, our consortium director is over here, Thatcher Weldon. He leads our consortium, which is a group of community colleges and adult school partners together. And it's within that consortium that we model our design and set our goals and what we're looking to achieve in increments throughout, a strategic, maybe it's a 1 year, 3-year plan. But the partnerships for adult education within the consortium and even outside the consortium are key. They're part of WIOA, but in this time that we live in, they're integral to our student success. We have a program with Teresa Hitchcock from our AJCC in our county, who has brought in community college for the third-party pay, and we're serving students it's just a really powerful program called Recycling Lives. I don't really like the name, but what it does is it pulverizes glass. It was a machine donated from Mr. Lazzarini and Advanced Beverage, and we got the right teacher on board. We partnered with Teresa, and it's like Brant is saying, it's a mindset. We're bringing people in that they're homeless. We're seeing drug addiction. We're seeing food insufficiency. I know Cap Case here, they've been really key in helping to feed the people that are in this program during the day. It takes everyone. It's not, we may be the educational provider, but we have all these partners that are helping to lift our students. So it is mandated in WIOA, but it is so beyond that. It's really about relationships. And exactly what you said with the mindset, they start to get a confidence that they can do something, they can be something, they can get a job. And then their children see that, and it lifts the entire family. So it's very foundational, very basic, but it's really key. The partnerships are integral to everything that we do, either in private business, community college, the consortium, et cetera.
So I know Deborah Mustaine is here in the room. Dr. Deborah Mustaine will be on the panel later, and she didn't know I was going to call on her in the sense of when I first started in this 8 years ago, she was key and instrumental. And the reason why I say that is because we had to very quickly build those relationships. And I reached out to her at the time. She was in a position where she understood the region and the work. And so we follow a model called collective impact. And really that's been central to a lot of our decision making, how we work. It is a structure itself. And that has facilitated for us to be able to work together because there are sensitive topics that are discussed in the room when you have 3 systems all trying to operate together. I think of it as like a 3-legged race. If one of you falls, all you fall. So we needed to look at data, we needed to look at money, lots of sensitive and taboo issues across this, different systems. So having a collective impact model really helped us because there are 5 pillars to that. So we had a structure very early on. We tied it to the vision of the county as well. So we were tying into other sections of our county that were already high performing and collaborating. And so that really facilitated that at the beginning to be able to establish a leadership group that was going to oversee the spending of those funds and so forth. So I'll attribute collective impact as a model that we used, but it doesn't in any way, take away from the importance of relationship building. That really is, the trust in the room is key, especially when you're talking about those kinds of sensitive topics.
Yeah, partnerships are obviously like foundational to the work that we all do together. Mandated partnerships, I'll have Undersecretary Knox close his ears and say, I could care less about mandatory partnerships. There's a lot of required things we have to do, infrastructure funding agreements and stuff, and I know Stuart feels the same. It is both things that were mentioned here. The idea that our fates are intertwined. I long ago, working together with our community college partners, we had this idea that we cannot cleanly cleave my success or failure from you in community college or adult ed. We're in this together whether we want to be or not, and so we better figure it out. So we happen to be, and I think it's true throughout the Central Valley, but certainly in Tulare and Kings counties, really effective. I see a few of my folks I partner with regularly, faces in the room, about like how do we figure this out? How do we meet the needs of businesses? Because we think meeting the needs of businesses will help meet the needs of individuals in our community to grow, to live here and have families that prosper. And then how do we make sure people that struggle to figure out how to access that prosperity, get a pathway to do so. I'll take credit on stage for an example of something that College of Sequoia is doing with registered nursing. No big secret, registered nursing program's very impacted, and so people can apply across the state because community colleges have to accept everyone, and then it becomes very competitive to get in, and then local folks who are working in low-wage jobs never get that opportunity to get in that pathway. John Shingle, I see here from COS, really sat down in our work with our local healthcare advisory and figured out a way to do some shared investment from the community college, from the hospitals themselves, and from us as the workforce board to share the load of an expansion of the program that would allow good performing, they're not gonna be able to get in that kind of like top ranked system, but good employees who are largely largely medical assistants and CNAs that are gonna be starting very soon a year-round program and become registered nurses who will stay in this community, who already have families in this community and will succeed. That is businesses sitting together for conversations month after month after month with the workforce board, community college and adult ed system, listening in and figuring out how they're going to meet the needs of those businesses and those people. So just one example of how those partnerships hit the ground.
Let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of, and Adam, you talked about this a little bit, but sort of what has changed since COVID in terms of the people that you're serving? Or Brandon, in your case, I mean, are you thinking strategically differently about how you're serving adults within the prison system? Are you seeing needs for different kinds of services? Are you targeting different kinds of sort of, training programs? Are people presenting with sort of different kinds of real needs for kind of basic services and support? What is different in the kind of current moment from where we were, say, 2.5 years ago?
Well, I mentioned that at any given time we have 50,000 people in school, and during the pandemic, we were like mini cruise ships. I mean, the COVID was just going like crazy through the prison system. We had many people die that were incarcerated because of COVID, more so than in the community. And so we shut down our programs, and we went to correspondence. And I think the biggest warriors in the whole system were the community college teachers. I could not believe it. I saw pictures of community college teachers with their car, and they'd open up their trunk and they would have packets of independent study where they would come in and deliver the packets to the students. So when you look at our data, we actually did not lower in numbers during the pandemic. College stayed the same. Now, I would argue that the quality of instruction was not as good because it was independent study and they didn't have the ability to interact with the students. But maybe inappropriately, I like to take a crisis and turn it into an opportunity. And that's what I did. With COVID, we were now able to convince our system that technology is going to be the key. And we were able to pivot to the use of doing online instruction, using the internet in prison. We now have wireless access points all over the place. And we're delivering laptops where students can actually use Canvas and have a similar experience that they would in the college system. And so that opportunity, that type of learning has changed. And I'm not saying we're going to go to all online because face-to-face instruction is really critical for us, especially with that population. But the ability to have all of the content, the course content online, and the ability to turn a paper in electronically and receive it electronically is something we can do now, where we couldn't do that before. So when we have another pandemic, or there's a lockdown in a prison because of too much fog, or because there's a riot, never again will we go to packet programming. It will never happen, because we have now the technology infrastructure set up where if we have to lock down, we're at least online, and we can do that. So that's been our biggest change.
In adult education, what are you seeing in terms of students coming in the door now?
So we've talked about this quite a bit. We are seeing students with multiple barriers. We're seeing, food insufficiency, homeless, mental illness. It's just the students are harder to serve, and also undiagnosed special ed adults that are coming to try to change their lives and improve their lives. And so one of the things that we have found success with, we have done it for a long time, but we've expanded it in this time, is our Title I. We partner with Title I. We're very fortunate. We're one of the few adult schools who has Title I and Title II under our umbrella. It's under the adult ed division of Kern High School District. And what that allows us to do is to provide all the support services that students need to succeed and persist in programs. To ask a student now to stay for a one semester class is asking a lot, but we're able to pay them. We're able to provide gas cards. We're able to provide, these type of referrals that help them with the persistence to stay. And another, with the difficulty of students and trying to remove barriers, we're co-located at the job spot with community college. We have BC right there with us. So when a student finishes the online high school diploma independent study or the GED, they don't have to drive anywhere, they don't have to take a bus anywhere. The same room, they walk across the hall and there's Indy Grahava and her team ready to enroll the student and get them started in the community college, if that's what they choose. And if they choose to continue on with a career technical education program with us, we've got those too. But that paid work experience for many of our programs has been a game changer.
Just a clarification of one thing. So WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, just to do the acronym thing for a second, Title I is services for low-income and dislocated workers under WIOA. Title II actually funds adult education. People do not know that at federal level that adult education is part of the workforce system and is funded actually through WIOA as well. So when you hear Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, those are all references back to WIOA, which basically funds a lot of the work that you're hearing here today.
So one of the things that we saw was students had an urgency, more of a sense of urgency to finish. So what we did is looked at what can we do for them at our adult ed sites, what can we do for them coming to the college, but then how do we bridge them between the two? Transition is really a big piece of what we do with one of our objectives in CAPE, but also think of how many of us, have transitioned from different jobs, and sometimes there's still that insecurity. So a lot of our students were feeling that, but they had a sense of urgency to finish. So at our adult ed sites, one thing we did was looked at the data and said, what are those barriers holding some of these students back? One, of course, we know is always language. For our population, 55% of our students said that Spanish was their native language. So we said, what can we do to help them with that? We brought on GED Spanish pathway to help them finish the diploma. What we found is a lot of them were already employed. It wasn't for employment, it was to move up in their employment. And what we also found, it wasn't that they finished and left, they came back and enrolled in some of our ESL programs. So that was the first thing we did. We also started another pathway, the National External Diploma Program, NEDP, and that appealed more to our college-educated immigrants because we know we have these different subsets of students. And that appealed more to them because it's competency-based. So they were able to move through it a lot faster because they had experience and had a knowledge base. So that's how we started getting them through that part of it. We also have transition counselors. And our program was recognized as a model program by the CAPE office last year because we were able to serve so many students, and what our counselors do is go on site to the adult ed sites. And they're college employees, they go there, they work with students on certain days of the week. Typically they're booked. And we found that a lot of these students, even right now during the pandemic, the ones that were able to meet in person, really needed to unpack a lot of that emotion that they were feeling during the pandemic. So our counselors were serving twofold, helping the student with resources to personal problems, but then also developing an ed plan and saying, how do we move you forward in a career and not just a job? And I think they address a lot of cultural issues working with them one-on-one, as well as in workshops. We're saying women traditionally don't gravitate to certain careers. So they were talking about that and saying, as a woman, you can own a business, you could be an entrepreneur, you could go into welding, non-traditional pathways are there for you as well. So these transition counselors have been key and instrumental on getting them to the college, and then the college has developed, both of our colleges in our district, non-credit ESL to be that bridge bringing them in, to get them established as a stepping stone before they're able to move into those other courses. So I'll say we saw it kind of in the three different stages of what can we do for the ones in adult ed, how do we transition them, and then how do we bridge them into the community college. And so we saw, and this was a surprise to me as well, is during the pandemic, our non-credit ESL that was online still maintained high enrollment and actually doubled at one of the colleges. So our students are resilient, and that's what we recognized is that if we offer it, they will come, and they did, because our enrollment was up actually in those areas.
Yeah, I want to pause a second and just make note of what you're hearing here, that we think about the job, and we think about the training and the skills, and what you're hearing are actually things about journeys and mindsets and really where the person is in their life journey. That we don't, education and training isn't about sort of the medical assisting training, it's about the way in which you wrap around the needs of the person in their life, kind of where they're at the moment. And I think everyone here has been incredibly eloquent about that, from mindsets in the prison system to the needs of folks coming in to really sort of to grapple with where they want to get to within the framework and the context of their lives and their lived experience. And it's so much more than just the transmission of knowledge or the transmission of skills. And I want to pivot a little bit, because we don't talk a lot about education in the workforce system, a little bit more, but it's really a dual customer system, right? So you're serving job seekers and students and adult learners, but you're also servicing businesses and industries and employers in your communities in a really kind of holistic way. And Adam, you were particularly eloquent about what you're seeing in terms of changes in the labor market, and then anyone else you could also share about ways in which you're seeing things in sort of businesses and industry and the way you're working with the sort of industry partners as well. But I want to give you a second to reflect on the kind of labor market dynamics.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking as we were thinking about the shifting needs of the students, the workers that we see. There's also the demand side, what we're seeing difference from industry and employers. And we've seen a real shift. It's no secret to any employer out there that we are in a totally different labor market than they've just about ever seen, the tightness of the labor market. And they're not, there are times when there is, as they see it, cheap available labor, that they set the bar and they say, don't send me anyone who doesn't meet A, B, and C, and moving on. That is, they are adjusting. There have been more conversations. We've always cared about durable employment opportunities with safe working environments and predictable work schedules that pay wages that can sustain a family. We've always all cared about that. But it can be at times difficult to nudge businesses towards the type of behaviors that we think get us there. They don't want to be lectured. They have their needs, they have their costs, they have all that stuff. They're pretty desperate now. The need to find workers to meet the demand that they're trying to meet. So there are more conversations immediately that we can have as a system as they say, is this what are other people paying for this kind of work? Because I want to make sure that I get noticed by workers that potentially apply. What kind of benefits are mattering to workers? Because it's not just what necessarily they'll throw out different things that cost them money, but not see any impact. So they're willing to sit down and say, what kind of benefits matter to workers given the kind of work we're looking at? What kind of support is needed to get, or what kind of policies do I have that are keeping people who maybe were an offender? There's a lot of laws in California about what you can and cannot ask. There are many businesses that are completely clueless or willingly clueless to those laws and screen out a bunch of folks before they have an opportunity to access that workforce. And so what are their education requirements that they're putting on recruitments? That these types of conversations have always been difficult to have. That's not the case anymore. And they also don't think any one place is the answer or blame you if you can't find the workers. They're looking everywhere. They'll do a job fair, they'll do a virtual recruitment. We do this weekly Facebook Live where businesses come on and discuss their job opportunities, and we do the same thing for our training partners' opportunities. So it's unprecedented. We have concerns about who's getting left behind, and we should have that. I think we should also have an excitement for there's an opportunity for folks that we've worked with that have struggled to figure out a way in the economy. There are some openings that we can take advantage of, I think, that can both help our businesses and our community prosper and help people that have had difficulty accessing the prosperity in our community be part of that prosperity.
Anyone else?
I agree with what Adam was saying, that the labor market's much different now. We work very closely with the California Workforce Investment Board, and Some of our training that we do inside the prison is centered around construction trades, and we have over 20 different CTE, career technical education programs. And I've been meeting with the largest construction company in the state and talking about how to prepare people for, while they're incarcerated, for the job market. And what they're telling us is, we just want people to show up to work. We don't even care what training you provide. If they can show up to work on time, and they can work hard, and they can have those employability skills, that's what we want. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we just spent millions of dollars on high-end career technical education programs and certifications. And while I still think that's important, it's interesting just the attitude. As even those that are formerly incarcerated, many people think, oh, they were incarcerated, so nobody would want to hire them. And we had the whole ban the box and all that. It's not the case as much in California now. Our people, if they have the proper mindset, they're becoming employed.
We're seeing that as well in our Recycling Lives program. We have a lot of formerly incarcerated individuals, and it is the mindset. It's the instructors, it's the relationships, building those partnerships with businesses that are open to taking a risk on students, and those students understand that they're paving the way for those that come behind them. If they burn the bridge, you know, that jeopardizes the partnership. But it is an interesting time because we're hearing a lot of the same things. You know, can you just show up on time, and can you work? So
I want to pivot back to partnership a little bit. I mean, what are some of the ways that colleges and the workforce system and adult education and other community organizations should really be coming together to re-engage communities around their needs for sustainable employment? I mean, not just entry-level jobs in retail or service industries, but also durable jobs in healthcare or construction or manufacturing, which are a little more resilient in the face of an economic downturn. I mean, is there sort of a promising practice or a strategy or a program? I know, Jody, you've talked about the program you have serving kind of formerly incarcerated and homeless, but are there other examples that we could actually look to for inspiration in the current moment?
You know, Randy, one thing that we're doing is working with our transition counselors. So I also sit on a Strong Workforce K-12 committee, and I see how much, you know, money and resources they're dedicating to reaching them in middle school and high school with career exploration. We don't really do that with adult ed. And with adults, you know, they're coming in from all these other avenues. They're not only coming in from our K-12 system, they're coming in as immigrants, they're coming in from other states. One of the things we realize is if we want them to, yes, you might have a job now, but what about your career later, is we're finding that our transition counselors and advisors are working with them closely to say, let's do some career exploration for you. Just because you're 18 does not mean that you know what the rest of your life is gonna be, or for those college-educated immigrants, I know 50-year-olds that don't know what they want, right? Is what we're seeing is a lot of even these, you know, individuals that have some college level, that might not have been their first career choice. And so that, you know, transcends and it impacts LMI data later on because these people are jumping from job to job and they're not happy with where they're at or saying this is not what I want to be doing. So one of the things we're doing is more career exploration just with our adult ed population to get them eventually into the career and the job that they want.
You know, I'd say employment training panel funds, to the degree that folks access that. The ability to look at entry-level workers as the best avenue for good paying, to fill good paying positions. These are good workers that might be working at low wages, but show up to work every day and are worth investing in the skills of. So between incumbent worker training, which is allowable with WIOA funds, and employment training panel funds, whether it's through, in our area, College of Sequoias is a multiple employer contract holder, we're able to kind of leverage our sector partnerships, pull people together, see what their needs are, and nothing makes you seem more relevant to a business than when you're able to meet their immediate, you're not training some workforce out there that they might touch. You're training their own workforce to meet their skills needs. And The ability for the workforce system, adult ed, community college system to kind of sit down with businesses consistently, understand the needs, develop training programs, and then execute on those has been helpful. It's been great that the administration, that the state has funded some portions of industry that haven't been able to access ETP in the past. It's made a big difference in a healthcare system like ours that have often not been able to access that. So,
Brant or Jody, anything you want to?
Well, you want to go ahead? Go ahead.
I'd like to say that what I've noticed in the communities, especially the large counties, is that we're not doing a very good job taking advantage of the partnerships that are out there. I don't mean we as Department of Corrections Rehabilitation, but I mean we as a whole. And when you consider the opportunities, and we're going to give you about 2,500 to 3,000 people every month that are going to be released from state prison. And these aren't people that are being released like the news media tells you. These are people that legitimately serve their time and they're coming out. And historically, it's 2,500 to 3,000 people. So where do they go? They come out into the communities. And what I've noticed is that you have the Adult Ed Consortia, you have incredible community-based organizations that are out there, and everybody's doing excellent work. And most of them are really good, providing quality services. But the person, this community-based organization doesn't even know the person next door. They don't even talk to each other. They might even compete with each other. And so what we need to do is we need to be able to provide opportunities for these organizations to come together. It's like the synergy principle, where 1 + 1 = 3. And we're not doing that very well. And if we actually work together and shared services and ideas, then I think we're going to do a lot better, especially for those coming out of state prison.
if I could just say just to that one right there, the prison to employment investment with CDCR funds, and because often we think CDCR and we think prisons and people coming out, but we don't have any state prisons in Tulare County, but a lot of people get paroled in Tulare into Kings County, and but besides the funding made available for it, the partnerships that are developed between parole and the workforce system and local community organizations has been it's been a great opportunity. When we didn't, that was a kind of a siloed system. Our two systems were kind of siloed at the local level, and that's helped really break down those silos.
Yeah, there was a time when Governor Brown was in office when he challenged us to start working together, and we didn't talk to each other. The Workforce Development Board and CDCR, there was just no communication. And with the additional funding and the governor's nudge, we actually created this friendship and true partnership where over the past several years, it's been amazing.
Jody?
I just wanted to mention that part of Perkins funding, a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about, but we're mandated to meet with our business, our industry sector partners annually to take that information and to be turning out students that are more relevant workers. So you were talking about healthcare. You know, if our community partners say we need your vocational nursing students to have an IB certification, that would help us. That frees up our RNs. The LVNs can be doing this work while they're doing something that, you know, only RNs can do. That's important for us to be doing that work in adult education, to be taking that information and then taking the advice and trying to put it into practice where we can. Then we become true partners in that sense. We're helping the business and we're helping our students, so they're, you know, able to have mobility and better jobs.
I'm going to sort of key on two things that sort of came up in this sort of last question, one of which is that there are so many, and I used to say this to the presidents of my colleges when I was a community college district dean, it's like everyone that we're trying to serve is being served somewhere else. That many of the people that we're trying to touch, that we're trying to work with, are working with community-based organizations, or they're in foster youth programs, or they're in adult education, and the college should be there. It shouldn't be just at the college. And so I think that the equity move in the current moment in many ways are about these kinds of not just partnerships, but really integration. It's not about the college being there or showing up or having a table. It's about what the college does at the adult school that helps students sort of situate themselves in a longer term journey. I think the second thing, the equity move is this question about careers and upskilling. We think about low-wage workers and underemployed adults as just needing a job. And in fact, helping them get that job may be about upskilling and incumbent worker training to help the entry-level workers move up in healthcare, so it actually expands opportunity at the entry level in durable industries where we know that an entry-level job in healthcare might not pay profound wages, probably has a better chance of having access to benefits. It probably has a better chance of being resilient in the long term in terms of the income of that family. And thinking about these sort of broader strategies and connections and the whole labor force, not just how do we expand job training programs, I think is an important part of the current moment. I want to say to my West Ed peeps who are moderating panels later today, I got through all my questions, and so the challenge is delayed for you. But we have a couple minutes for questions. If anybody, I was told to leave some time for that, if anybody has a question for the panel. Is there a mic in the audience? Really? Someone want to raise their hand, and I will run around in the audience. Or you could all get coffee. Okay, well, lacking questions. Oh, right over here. Kathy?
I'm glad we inspired somebody.
You just answered all the questions.
All of you have talked about partnerships, and it also includes internally partnerships. And so with all of the efforts that everyone has been doing in developing workforce, I also find the mindset also needs to be changing within our traditional community college structures in relationship to our faculty, our support staff, our administrators. And so I was thinking through just the traditional work schedules. We're trying to work with employers. Some employers were dealing with a 24-hour cycle depending on what part of the state you're at, the logistics side of it. So depending on your business will depend on how are we serving those businesses to provide services in the hours those workers, our students, can be successful in. And so I'm just curious to your reflection and discussion, both working within the Department of Corrections and the instruction and changing those mindsets in those various different facilities to the adult learning, right, day and nighttime, to every different county has different relationships with their workforce boards. So how do you change and continue to start working within that to truly accommodate the needs that our traditional work structure has changed, specifically hours and the services at night?
How do we change? I'm sorry.
I can start. I'm not exactly sure what your question is, but I love to talk, and so. Yeah. I think that maybe you're not going to like this answer, but if you want something bad enough, just go make it happen. Just do it. And if your community doesn't have a local consortium of community-based organizations and colleges and adult schools together, then go do it. Nobody's stopping you. You may not have the time to do it, but if you want to do it bad enough, you'll figure it out. And maybe that's not a good enough answer, but somebody has to pioneer these efforts, and it could be you.
You know, I get where the question's coming from, and I don't have the answers because I don't get to run the community college system or CSU system or anything like that. And there are complicated governance issues, obviously. I think you find lanes, and I think our local partners have found lanes through contract ed or through grant-funded things. You find some lanes to get out and do some stuff. Call everything a pilot, call everything whatever it takes to find space to do the things you know need to get done, and then try to make sure that your institution has external influence, like business leadership groups coming saying, as our community college district, this is what the community needs from you so that you can have, it's tough internal to reshape institutions that have, for good reason, governance structures that are very complex and contribute from a lot of different areas. But to have that external voice always coming in saying, here's what community needs, where can we rise, and oh, maybe we can pilot this contract ed thing, this new grant thing is a way of getting some space to do some things that otherwise are hard to move institutionally.
So I'm not a panelist, but this used to be my job in the college system. One of the things that I struggled with, and I came from about 20 years in workforce development and sort of did a lot of community work, is that colleges sometimes perceive themselves as islands, and oftentimes approach other organizations with what the college needs in order to be successful, and not what the college can bring to the partnership. And so often you get more by giving. And so like we would go to talk to employers and we would say, here are the things the college needs from business and industry to be successful, where if we let the employers identify their own pain points and their own issues, talent and recruitment was always number one or number two. And letting them articulate that, listening deeply to the needs of organizations and business and industry, oftentimes then employers were much more giving in terms of what the kind of the sort of the solutions were related to that. I just felt like I needed to kind of add that to the equation.
Randy, just real quick, I don't know, is it working? Yeah. Real quick, just non-conventional ways of that we found in our consortium to serve is, I have one adult ed site that's actually refurbishing a classroom to bring in the AJCCs to be able to have someone there on site to work with students outside of their hours. We've hired some counselors that are part-time adjunct to be able to work either evenings or weekends. So we're trying to find those places of meeting the student where they are, and that's two ways that we found right now is either hiring part-time individuals that can just plug in that need for now until we figure things out, but also reworking our workforce development board just actually opened an office in the mall. So you're going to where the people are, and so that's what we're trying to do with some of our classrooms as well as bringing in those people.
So we're at time. I want to thank all four of you. Really, you shared so much today, and it was definitely inspirational for me, and just thank you so much for being here today.
Ready?
All right, so we're now going to take a 15-minute break, so come back at 10:45. And in the meantime, what I encourage you to do is think about that tightrope walk you did during the pandemic, where you changed things that didn't seem possible to change at scale, because you already know how to do this. See you back at 10:45.